The morning light sliced through the blinds like blades of clarity, softly illuminating the polished floorboards of my garage. I stood there, admiring the serene beauty of my motorcycle, a vintage piece of artistry that gleamed like a testament to freedom and open roads. Its chrome accents captured the morning sun, reflecting visions of endless highways and whispered adventures. It was more than a vehicle. It was part of my soul, parked safely within the embrace of my own four walls. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that hugged every house in a suburban cul-de-sac, where uniform lawns stretched under the watchful eyes of meticulous homeowners. It was a morning like any other, except for the soft purr of discontent that always seemed to linger in the air, emanating from the house across the street. Karen lived there, a woman whose presence was felt even when unseen, like a cloud casting a shadow on a sunny day. Her life's mission appeared to be the preservation of her domain. Every blade of grass, every leaf that dared fall out of line was under her scrutiny. Her jurisdiction extended beyond her property, reaching into the lives of her neighbors with a firm and unyielding grip. It was the distant rumble of my motorcycle that had attracted her attention, a beacon of rebellion against her ordered world. Parking it in my garage should have been safe, a sanctuary for my solace and escape. But for Karen, it was an affront, a breach of the unspoken rules that governed our neighborhood. That day, as I polished the already pristine surface of my bike, I noticed a shadow stretching across the driveway, long and accusing. I imagined it was Karen's disapproval taking form, creeping into my space. There was no knock, no confrontation, just an unsettling stillness that felt like the calm before a storm. Later, the serenity was shattered by the wail of sirens, slicing through the tranquility like a serrated blade. My heart leapt, a startled bird in my chest. The police arrived with an urgency that suggested catastrophe, though all they found was a man and his motorcycle, both quietly existing within their rightful domain. The officers with professional detachment expressed confusion, a hint of apology in their eyes. I could sense their reluctance, the absurdity of their presence not lost on them. It was Karen who had called, her voice a sharp staccato over the phone, demanding order, compliance, control. A single line of dialogue cut through the tension like lightning, a question that held the weight of disbelief and irony. "You called 911 for this?" The officers left, their departure a slow unwinding of tension, leaving behind a lingering sense of absurdity and an unspoken promise of an escalating feud. I stood in the garage, watching them go, the motorcycle a silent sentinel beside me. Inside, a quiet resolve took root, a seed of defiance carefully planted. Karen's actions were but the first notes in a symphony of pettiness, a prelude to a battle of wills. I would not engage in open warfare, no. Mine would be a subtle resistance, a quiet assertion of my right to exist, undisturbed, within my own space. The motorcycle remained in the garage, a symbol of my silent rebellion, a testament to resilience and quiet power. I closed the garage door slowly, the finality of its echo a punctuation mark on the morning's events. Outside, the neighborhood returned to its suburban calm, unaware of the storm that brewed beneath its placid surface. I listened to the silence, each breath a reminder of the peace I intended to preserve, no matter how many sirens Karen might summon. The morning after Karen's ill-fated 911 call, the neighborhood seemed wrapped in an unusual stillness, a deceptive calm. I imagined her waking up, coffee cup in hand, her gaze fixed on my garage with the unwavering intensity of a hawk eyeing its prey. My motorcycle, the innocent catalyst of her ire, sat placidly in its rightful place, oblivious to the chaos it had unwittingly unleashed. It was a small thing, really, a motorcycle in a garage, But to Karen, whose life seemed meticulously curated to the rigid bylaws of our HOA, it was an affront to the natural order, an anomaly she couldn't tolerate. I could almost feel the weight of her disdain settling on my shoulders as I stepped outside, like an invisible shroud. The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass, but underneath it lingered the sour tang of discontent. The warning letter arrived the following day, as I knew it would. Folded crisply, the paper bore the emblem of the HOA, a symbol that, until now, had been nothing more than a distant, bureaucratic force. Its words were sharp, clipped, each sentence a small, precise incision. Non-compliance, it read. Violation of community standards. I laughed, a low, humorless sound that broke the silence of my living room. Karen's signature was absent, but her fingerprints were everywhere. The letter was just the first volley in what was clearly a planned campaign of attrition. Days passed, and the absurdity escalated. A citation for improperly aligned trash cans followed. Then another for unauthorized lawn ornamentation. A whimsical gnome that had stood in silent watch over my garden for years. Rules I had never known existed were pulled from the ether. Each one a new barb in the wire she seemed intent on wrapping around me. Through it all, I retained my facade of calm. I knew better than to give her the satisfaction of seeing me flustered. Instead, I became a quiet storm, my determination growing stronger with each petty infraction. I took care to follow the rules, even the ones she seemed to concoct out of thin air, refusing to give her any legitimate cause for complaint. But it wasn't long before the whispers began. In the grocery store, over fences, muted conversations halted as I approached. Eyes followed me, curious, speculative. Karen's gossip spread like wildfire, igniting small pockets of doubt and suspicion among the neighbors. Her narrative was a compelling one, casting me as the rogue element in our pristine community. I felt the pressure building, a slow, insidious tightening around my chest. Yet, I knew the real battle was not with Karen, nor with the rules she wielded like a weapon. It was with the insidious undercurrent she had created, a tide of opinion that could be far more damaging than any official sanction. In the quiet of my garage, I would sit on my motorcycle, feeling the cool metal beneath my fingers, finding solace in its steadfast presence. It became a symbol of constancy, a reminder of my resolve. Karen hadn't realized that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And I, in my silent way, was preparing. She had underestimated me, assumed compliance, imagined submission. What she failed to see was that I thrived in the quiet, that my power lay not in loud declarations, but in steady, unyielding resistance. For now, I waited, letting her play her hand, every petty move cataloged in my mind. I knew her game well, and soon it would be my turn to make a move. The morning light crawled through the slats of my blinds, casting stripes across the room like the bars of a cage. My sanctuary felt less safe now, ever since Karen's siren call had shattered the peace. Her voice, shrill and unyielding, echoed in my mind, a relentless reminder that my own home was no longer my own. The memory of the police officer's sheepish smile as he explained the absurdity of the situation lingered too. An apology wrapped in bewilderment, a gesture that blurred the lines between duty and disbelief. The motorcycle sat in the garage, innocent and gleaming, a symbol of my independence that had somehow become a catalyst for chaos. I ran my fingers along its handlebars, feeling the cool metal under my touch. It was just a machine, yet it had become an accidental pawn in a game I never intended to play. I decided to document everything, every interaction, every sideways glance from Karen, every note that mysteriously appeared under my door. I wanted clarity, a trail of evidence to prove the absurdity of it all. My phone became an unblinking witness, recording the moments when her eyes drilled into my soul from across the hedge, each sideways glance heavy with unspoken accusations. My pen scribbled the details, turning the mundane into a narrative of resistance, a saga where I was both the hero and the scribe. My efforts to ignore her had been futile, like trying to ignore a mosquito in a quiet room. Her presence was a constant buzz, needing just the right moment to sting. But instead of swatting at the phantom menace, I planned a counter. Subtle, calculated. I attended the next HOA meeting, blending into the sea of plaid button-ups and pastel cardigans. The agenda was mundane: landscaping, budget allocations, recycling schedules. But I waited, biding my time for the moment when the floor would open to new business. My heart drummed a steady beat in my chest, a quiet rhythm of resolve. When the moment arrived, I rose slowly, my chair scraping against the floor like a violin bow drawn across a cello. All eyes turned to me, including Karen's, piercing and expectant. I spoke calmly, weaving a narrative that was as much about communal harmony as it was about personal liberty. I painted a picture of tolerance, of understanding, of respecting the spaces we each occupied. I made no mention of the motorcycle, nor the 911 call, steering clear of direct confrontation. Instead, I planted seeds of doubt in the fertile ground of neighborhood gossip. Why, I mused, should we not embrace the uniqueness of our community, celebrate differences rather than police them? Silence followed, heavy yet fragile, like a porcelain vase perched on the edge of a shelf. I returned to my seat, feeling the collective weight of their attention shift like a tide. For a moment, Karen's veneer cracked, a flicker of something unrecognizable passing across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by the familiar mask of indignation. As the meeting adjourned, I lingered, watching the slow exodus of neighbors. They dispersed, taking with them whispers of my words, seeds carried on the wind of idle chatter. Karen paused at the door, her gaze meeting mine with a challenge and a promise. I smiled, a gesture as much for myself as for her. The game had changed, and I was no longer a mere player. I was the narrator of my own story, the architect of a quiet revolution. My motorcycle waited in the garage, a testament to battles fought not with fists or fury, but with words and will. As the ink dried on the cease and desist letter, I marveled at how simple words could harness such power. Words had always been important to me, yet here they were, holding the weight of my quiet rebellion against Karen. It had taken only a few days to set everything in motion, but the anticipation of what was to come simmered beneath my calm exterior. I had taken careful steps, enlisting the help of a lawyer I trusted, a subtle, tactical move rather than a loud, confrontational one. My legal counsel had a reputation for surgical precision in these matters, and the letter outlined the overreach of Karen's authority, detailing the law's stance on personal property rights and harassment. It was a shield, crafted to deflect further intrusion. With serene determination, I slid the letter into an envelope, sealing it with a sense of finality. It was a small act, yet it felt monumental. I imagined Karen opening it, her eyes scanning the text, understanding in that moment she had finally met resistance. A small smile played on my lips at the thought. The motorcycle sat steadfast in my garage, an emblem of my unwillingness to yield to the frivolous demands of an overzealous HOA president. Its chrome gleamed defiantly under the dim light, whispering tales of freedom and journeys untaken. It was more than metal and machinery, it was a testament to my autonomy. Yet, despite the decisive action, an undercurrent of uncertainty lingered. I knew Karen's type well. She thrived on control, wielding the HOA rulebook like a gavel, eager to assert her little dominion. But this time she would face a barrier of her own making, spun from her web of unnecessary grievances. Walking through my home, the evening shadows stretched lazily along the walls. There was a strange comfort in their presence, like silent companions that understood my resolve. I had always found solace in the quiet. It offered clarity and perspective. The next day, the letter was sent. A step toward reclaiming my peace. Karen's reaction would be inevitable, her indignation almost palpable across the street. I wondered how long it would take for her to compose herself enough to respond. Perhaps a day, maybe more. The anticipation was thrilling, in a way that was both unnerving and liberating. The irony wasn't lost on me. Karen, a self-appointed guardian of neighborhood decorum, now the recipient of a missive she couldn't ignore. Her crusade had reached its zenith, only to be met with an unexpected counter. Days passed, the sun tracing lazy arcs across the sky. Life continued its gentle ebb and flow, a stark contrast to the storm I had unleashed. It was a waiting game now, one I played with patience honed over months of enduring Karen's antics. Then it happened. A knock at my door, sharp and deliberate. In that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. I opened the door to find Karen standing there, a veneer of composure barely concealing her inner turmoil. Her eyes flicked to mine, searching for some sign of weakness, some crack in my resolve. "Is this how you want it?" she asked, her voice a blend of incredulity and resentment. I offered no verbal reply, only a steady gaze that spoke volumes. This was how it had to be. Her empire of petty complaints had finally met its match. The silence stretched between us, a bridge she had no intention of crossing. She turned abruptly, retreating to her fortress of shrubs and meticulously manicured lawns. Watching her walk away, I felt the corners of my mouth lift slightly in a smile of quiet victory. Karen might have ruled with an iron fist, but she had underestimated the power of a gentle, unwavering pushback. The motorcycle remained, steadfast in my garage, a symbol of my small but significant triumph. In the silent recesses of my mind, I knew this was only the beginning. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, painting stripes of light across the garage floor where my motorcycle stood, a symbol of defiance, or maybe just a scapegoat in this suburban drama. The echoes of yesterday's chaos with Karen still lingered in the air, like dust particles caught in the sunlight, refusing to settle. The community meeting was scheduled for noon. The HOA had called it, eager to address the spectacle Karen had turned into an art form. I arrived early, hoping to absorb the atmosphere before it filled with tension and opinions. The community center was quiet, its walls lined with framed photographs of neighborhood barbecues and charity events, reminders of what this place could be when not under siege by overzealous rule enforcers. The room began to fill, each person carrying the weight of their own grievances. Eyes flickered towards me, some sympathetic, others curious, but all overshadowed by the invisible presence of Karen, who arrived with the dramatic flourish of a storm cloud. Her eyes scanned the room, her lips pressed into a thin line, as if trying to sculpt the air itself to her will. We settled into our seats, and the meeting commenced with the usual formalities. The agenda was clear. Address the issue of the hoarded hazard, as Karen had so eloquently put it, as if my bike was an unattended campfire flickering with menace. Voices rose and fell around me, a cacophony of mild outrage and hesitant support. Karen's voice sliced through, sharp and unwavering, laying out her case with the precision of a lawyer. Her words were a series of jabs designed to rattle and unsettle, but I felt oddly detached, as if watching a performance from afar. Then, a pause. The floor was mine. An opportunity to counter Karen's narrative, to reclaim the truth from her verbal sleight of hand. I stood, surveying faces that had become familiar, yet unfamiliar, in their collective judgment. The room waited, the air heavy with expectation. I spoke, my words measured and deliberate. I described the events as they had unfolded, stripping away embellishments, leaving only the bare bones of reality. The motorcycle in my garage, the overreaction, the unnecessary escalation. I painted Karen not as a villain, but as a victim of her own rigidity, trapped in a world of self-imposed rules. The room seemed to shift, a subtle realignment of perception as I spoke. People listened, truly listened, and perhaps for the first time saw the person behind the so-called nuisance. I finished with a quiet resolve, the kind that doesn't shout or demand attention, but speaks of truth and intent. Karen sat, her expression unreadable, the armor of certainty cracked but not broken. Her silence was a small victory, a validation of sorts. But it was the voices of my neighbors, rising in a gentle murmur of support, that cemented the moment. The meeting concluded with a resolution to revisit the HOA guidelines, an acknowledgement that perhaps the rules were too rigid, too easily twisted into weapons rather than tools for harmony. Karen remained silent, her influence diminished, for now, by the collective will of the community. I left the meeting room with a lighter step, the world outside brighter and more welcoming. My motorcycle waited in the garage, a testament to resilience and a reminder that even the smallest rebellions can shift the course of a community.